All right, guys. Today we're going to be talking about main idea, and we've been learning about main idea in class the last couple weeks. Let's review. Who can tell me what the main idea of a story is? Let's start with why do we find the main idea? Let's start with that. Why would we find the main idea? Grace?
It helps us understand what we read.
Exactly. We filled out our anchor chart already before. It helps us to understand what we've read or what we've been reading. The opening is really important because it really sets the scene for the expectations of the learning, and it really gives the kids just some guidelines about what you're going to be doing in small group and helps them refresh and understand what the expectations are also of the standards and where we want them to go. Okay, now fiction story and nonfiction stories are a little different. Let's start with fiction. What is a fiction story? Mary Frances?
A fiction story is fake.
It's a fake story, right? It's not real information. What's a nonfiction story? Anthony?
It's a real story.
It's real information, facts. Okay? So how are a fiction story and a nonfiction story, how are they the same? What's the same about those type of stories? Simon?
They both have a main idea.
They both have a main idea. Let's review here how we said we can find the main idea in a fiction story. So let's read this together. To find a fiction story main idea, it is what the story is mostly about and something that happens over and over again. We had some examples of some stories we read. We read the book Poppy. Who remembers what the main idea was in the story Poppy? Anna?
Poppy wants to help her family.
Yeah, she wants to help her family. So even though it's a chapter book and it was a really, really long story, the whole time in the story she wants to help her family, right? And we also read one of our favorite stories, Miss Nelson's Missing. What's the main idea in that story? Jacob.
The kids try to find Miss Nelson when she is missing.
Exactly. It's a short story, but all the time they try to find Miss Nelson, right? Now this week and last week we have been working on nonfiction main idea. Is the main idea in a nonfiction story exactly the same as a fiction story? No. Is it similar? Is it kind of the same? Yeah, it's a little bit the same. Okay, so in a nonfiction story, we said, what does the author want me to learn? So that means why is the author writing the book for us, right? Okay. Who can remember some tips when we read a story, a nonfiction story, how do we find the main idea in that story? Gabby?
You can use the first or last sentence to help you.
We can use the first and last sentence, okay? And what else do we use to help us? Jaden?
Use the title to help you.
Yeah, we can use the title to give us information about what the story is going to be out and what the main idea is. All right, so one of the examples we already talked about was the book Farm Animals. We had already read this book last week in class, and the main idea in Farm Animals was farm animals help people. Do they all do the same job? No, but they do different jobs to help us. Another book that we read yesterday was the book Teeth. Okay, so let's use what we learned. Someone told us, who told us? Use the first and last sentence to help us. Gabby, did you tell us that? Yes, Gabby told us that. And Jaden told us to use the what? The title. So let's look at the title. What's the title of this book, everybody?
Teeth.
Do we think that's going to maybe help us?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Yes? All right, let's see. Now, I'm also going to read the first and last sentence. The first sentence says, it's hard to imagine life without teeth. All right. And the last sentence of our book says, it's actually the last two sentences, teeth, don't you wish you had more? So we said the title was teeth. The first sentence tells us about teeth. Last sentence tells us about teeth. I want you to talk with your partners about what you think the main idea of this story was.
Like different kinds, the animals use different kinds of things for chew on their food. Yeah. I think animals have different types of teeth because they eat different food.
I think that I'm gonna go with Joshua. I think that they need their teeth to eat their food. Like that giraffe, it needs smooth teeth so it can get a little grip on the grass.
One of the things that's really important when you're running an effective classroom is making sure that the students feel like your day is one whole day and it's not broken up into segments. So one thing I do when we're transitioning is I make sure that we're doing it quickly and that we're staying busy and that the kids aren't having a lot of downtime. Because when the kids have a lot of downtime, it leads to some behavioral issues sometimes.
When you think of discipline, you think of the negative part of discipline. But she has very much geared her classroom expectations towards the positive portion. Finding those students who are exemplifying what good behavior is or meeting those expectations and making sure that those students are recognized.
If you can hear me, touch your nose. If you can hear me, touch your ears. If you can hear me, clap 2 times. Okay, I should have everybody's eyes up here. All right, what did you and your partners say was the main idea of the story we read? Teeth. Colin?
Different types of teeth and what they do.
Different types of teeth and what they do. Thumbs up if you all agree with Colin. When I first started to do stations, it was a little bit scary because in my mind as a new teacher, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm just going to let them be out there and fingers crossed that they're going to do what they're supposed to be doing. But all of the stations take, especially with primary age kids, probably about a week of you facilitating each station to make the kids really independent to do them. And the goal of stations isn't for any new learning. The goal is to reinforce concepts that they've already been exposed to. And with the collaborative literacy stations, the buddy reading and the listening center and the big book, those are books and stories that they haven't read before, but they understand the expectation of the station and how to complete the graphical organizer or complete the task that's required of them after reading the story. In the listening station, we really focus, this station is a nonfiction listening station. A lot of times in literacy blocks, teachers will do fiction stories that have a beginning, middle, end, and they have a story that goes along with it. But in this station, we really only focus on nonfiction stories. And the reason that we do that is so that we're able to integrate other content areas into our language arts instruction. And with CCGPS, literacy across all of the content areas is extremely important. So with this station, the students were listening to a nonfiction story about penguins. And one of the standards in first grade is about animals and life cycles and all about animals. So we really are able to go more in depth with our science standards by providing them with opportunities in language arts to integrate that. And the text that they're listening to is at a much higher complexity and level than a text that they would listen to a fiction text, because it actually requires them to pick out key elements and details and use a lot of skills that you can really only use in nonfiction books. In the buddy reading station, this is really my favorite station for the students. In that station, what the students do is they are comparing and contrasting a fiction and a nonfiction text. At this point in science, we're focusing on animals, and so the text that they were working on today was one fiction text about the same animal as the nonfiction. And they complete a Venn diagram, and it's something that we definitely have worked on before, and the expectation is that they can do this independently. The books that I use are books that are also at different text complexities, like in the small group guided reading station, but they are not as specific reading levels as when I read with a group that's homogeneously grouped. The students who are paired are paired based on reading levels, but like I said, that's not the only factor that I use. Also, their behavior and who they work well with and who I know they're going to have an engaging conversation with, and they're going to question each other and feel comfortable having a discussion and work together to complete the learning task. When the kids come to the Guided Reading Center, which is the teacher-led center, what we do is every day we read the story, especially with the students who are struggling readers. We start by reading the story, and all the kids take turns reading. We model fluency for each other. We sound out words. We work on expression, reading with accuracy. Then by the end of the week, the goal is with all of the students to focus on the comprehension strategy we're working on. Let's take out our books, A Kitten Grows. So, who can tell me, this is our 3rd day reading this story. What have we been working on when we've been reading this story? Working on our words, to read like we speak. What is that called? Who can remember what that word is called?
Life cycle?
Fluency. Thank you, Addison. Fluency. Okay, so we're going to get started. We're going to read the story one time. Then we are going to be working on our graphic organizer about main idea and details, okay?
One of the things that makes Miss Doherty an effective teacher is the fact that she has the ability to assess her students' individual needs and design her curriculum so that she meets the needs of those individual students. When you're teaching in a large group, it's hard to look at 23, 24 students and look at them as individuals. You're looking at them as a whole group. But when you break them down like she does and works with them in small group, she's able to really determine what does that student need.
To group the students for that station, there's a variety of assessment tools I use. Two of the ones that we use here at my school for summative assessment is we use the STAR reading as well as Fountas and Pinnell. And STAR reading is a computer-based assessment where students read passages and answer questions on a computer, and it gives the teachers a quick snapshot of their reading. But because it is on the computer, it's really important to do another type of reading assessment, especially with younger students. That's one-on-one, so you can really gauge where their areas of strengths are and where their areas for improvement are. So we use Fountas and Pinnell. That's another reading assessment. That one is done one-on-one, where you read with a student. You take into consideration their accuracy, how fluently they read with expression, as well as comprehension. Are y'all ready?
Yeah.
Okay, when you know the title, put your finger on your nose. When you know the title, put your finger on your nose. Thank you. DJ, what's the title?
A Kitten Grows.
A Kitten Grows. Okay, so let's open up and let's get started. Simon, start us off. Page 2. Hold on, wait for DJ. Put your books down so I can hear you. Beautiful voices. Put them down. I should see you tracking. You should be following along as we go.
Little kitten, I am very soft. I can
Smell.
Well, but I cannot see yet.
Good reading. I can tell you've been practicing. Okay, go ahead, Gabby.
For now, my home is in a box. I need to drink milk to grow.
Good job. So what's going on in those pages? What's going on right there with that kitten, Addison? On page 2 and 3. In these pages.
This kitten was just born.
Uh-huh.
And these kittens were drinking milk from the mom.
Okay, good. Perfect. All right, Addison, your turn.
Look how much I grow soon.
Now, what's that? What is that? A what?
Excellent.
Exclamation. What do you do when you see an exclamation mark? You get what?
You go a little excited.
Okay, so let's practice reading that again.
Look how much I grow so soon.
Soon. Remember, we got to raise our voice. Let's all practice that sentence together. Look how much I grew so soon. Good job. Keep going, Addison.
Now I can see too.
Simon, is there a time when kittens can't see?
Yes.
When?
When they're born.
When they're first born, they can't see, can they? So now the kitten's getting older so it can see. All right, next page. Working with the kids in small, homogeneous groups is a way for me as the teacher to make sure that they're getting the concept and really understanding it, but also giving them a chance to feel comfortable, even more comfortable than they do already in our classroom, but really feel comfortable asking questions and reading texts that are on their specific learning levels. And that's something that when you're providing instruction whole group, you don't really get the chance to do that.
It's time to go back to my box.
Good expression, Addison. What is that called? Who can remember what that symbol that at the end of the sentence is? Exclamation mark. Good job. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is we've been working on main idea, right? Yeah. Right? So is this a fiction story or a nonfiction?
Non-fiction.
Nonfiction. So this is true information. So we're going to get started. I want you to, on our graphic organizer, go ahead and write the title and the author. Let's get started. After they listen to the story, they are able to work collaboratively to complete a graphic organizer. And graphic organizers are something that, as you probably have seen, that we use all the time in my classroom. They're great to use across multiple subject areas, and they're a great way for kids to organize their thoughts and really pick out key elements from texts. All right, now, what's the title of the story? Just squeeze it on top anywhere, hun. A Kitten Grows. Let's start with the first box, main idea. We learned that main idea is what the author wants us to learn, right? what were some of the tricks we found out? What were some things it can do to help us figure out what the main idea is? What can we use in the book to help us figure out the main idea? Gabby, where can we look? Gabby's turn.
First and the last.
First and the last sentence? Okay, let's all find the first sentence in our story. All right, you all did an awesome job. What did we learn about today? The what?
A kitten
grows. I have a data notebook that I keep for reading and for math, and with the data, what I do is every reading group has a page, and I will keep the page for about a week, and I take notes on every student and how they're progressing and doing. And a great thing with keeping anecdotal notes is then you have a record of any areas for improvement that they may need. So when you're conferencing with parents or other teachers, for anything, whatever you need to do, you have your observational data of the student, and you have a place to go back and look and see, is the student making growth? Is there a concern? Are they struggling? In the Big Book Station, what I like to do is I like to integrate either math, science, or social studies into that. And so one of the things I do first is I look for a book that ties into our standards in one of those subject areas. The book from the lesson was 5 Little Monkeys Jumping on the Bed, and in that story right now in math, we're focusing on subtraction strategies. So this was a great story to integrate our math content into literacy. The students read the story. I always assign a captain for the group, and they take turns doing that, but I make sure to do someone who I know is going to be able to facilitate their group and make sure that the kids are reading and following along in the story. After they read the story, they have a short story organizer to complete. And after they complete the story organizer, they're able to write their own subtraction story that follows the same example as the story they read. Today we were learning about what? What have we been learning about? Main idea. Okay, we've compared and contrasted fiction stories and nonfiction stories, and you all have worked in your groups and with me. Now we're going to do a little think, pair, share with your partners about main idea, all right? Okay, so I'm going to read you the first passage, and I want you to listen to it very carefully. Is everyone's listening ears on? Yeah. Okay, turn them on if they're not on. All right. Fluffy was a large gray and white cat. Fluffy lived in a barn on a farm. Fluffy liked living in the barn. It was warm in the winter and cool in the summer. There were many mice for Fluffy to chase. Best of all, Fluffy had a soft place to sleep in the corner of the barn. Do you guys need to hear it one more time?
Yes.
Okay. Fluffy was a large gray and white cat. Fluffy lived in a barn on a farm. Fluffy liked living in the barn. It was warm in the winter and cool in the summer. There were many mice for Fluffy to chase. Best of all, Fluffy had a soft place to sleep in the corner of the barn. Okay, I want you to get with your group. Hold on. I want you to get with your group, and I want you to figure out with your partners what the main idea is of this first passage, okay? Get with your groups. I can teach them and I can tell them and we can work together, but really the best way for the kids to learn and to really retain the information that they're learning is through collaborative grouping. And that's one reason why I really utilize Think, Pair, Share and small group, because the kids can really learn from each other and they can work through explaining their ideas to their peers and vice versa. And by doing that, they can engage in meaningful academic discourse and talk about it and really become independent thinkers. Okay, if you can hear me, touch your nose. If you can hear me, touch your ears. If you can hear me, clap once. Okay, who can tell me what their partner said the main idea was of our first, if you're still talking, I'm waiting. Who can tell me what their partner said was the main idea of our first passage? Anthony?
Where Fluffy had a good place to live.
Fluffy had a good place to live. Okay, thumbs up if you agree with Anthony. Okay, who can tell me some key words in here that told me that that was the main idea? And remember, is this a fiction or a nonfiction?
Nonfiction.
Nonfiction, this is facts? Fiction, this is a fake story, okay? So we can look back up here at our anchor chart what the story is mostly about. Well, Anthony said that Fluffy had a good place to live and something that happens over and over. What happened over and over in this story? What did it keep telling you about? Fluffy and what? Alex?
What do you like to do?
What do you like to do? So it's about what Fluffy likes to do?
No,
You got it.
What he does in the barn.
Okay, so it's about what he does in the barn. And what word was over and over besides for Fluffy?
Fluffy.
Besides for Fluffy.
Oh.
Lindsay?
His home.
His home, which is the what?
Barn.
The barn. Okay, so Fluffy was a large gray and white cat. So there's Fluffy. Fluffy lived in a barn on a farm. Is the word Fluffy again?
Yes.
And where does he live? In a
Barn.
Okay. Fluffy liked living in the barn. What two words are there again?
Fluffy.
Fluffy and barn. It was warm in the winter and cool in the summer. There were many mice for Fluffy to chase. Fluffy. Fluffy had a soft place to sleep in the corner of the barn. Barn and Fluffy. So that's telling me that, Anthony, what did you say the main idea was again?
That Fluffy had a good place to live.
He had a good place to live. Okay, so Fluffy had a good place to live. So in our first passage, the main idea was Fluffy had a good place to live. Now let me read you the second passage. Fluffy was a cat that lived in a barn. Some cats live in people's houses. Cats are nice animals. A square is a shape. It has 4 sides. I have 2 pet birds. They are named Max and Jane. My pet birds like to sing in the morning. My friend Alex has a little brother. His brother's 5 years old. Should I read it one more time to y'all? No, you got it? Okay, talk with your groups about what you think the main idea is.
We do groups because if you don't know the answer, you and your buddy can try to figure it out, and if you need any help, you can get a help from your buddy. It's great to have a person to be in your group so you could talk to them if you don't really know about it.
All right, so who can tell me what you and your partner decided the main idea was of this second passage? What did y'all think the main idea was? Amelia?
There wasn't a main idea.
Amelia thinks there is no main idea. Does anyone think anything differently about this story? Samuel?
Animal shapes, friends, and people.
Animals, shapes, friends, and people. 4 different things as your main idea. All right, well, let's take a look at our anchor chart and see who is correct. So what's the story morally about? That's 4 different shapes, animals, friends, people. That's 4 things. So is that one thing the story is mostly about, or is that 4 things?
It's about different things.
Different things. Okay, so is that the main idea?
Yes. No.
Or do we think that Amelia had said there's no main idea? Do we think that that's what it is? Okay, so let's do a vote. Thumbs up for no main idea. Okay, thumbs up for shapes, animals, people. What else did you say? Friends for main idea. Okay, so we think that the story doesn't have a main idea? Yeah. Why does the story not have a main idea? What's wrong? Jaden?
Because it has all kinds of different things.
All kinds of different information. And to have a main idea, it has to be mostly about what? Something, one thing. Mostly, what the story is mostly about. This is not mostly about anything. Now, let's talk about why it's important to have a main idea. Why do we need to have a main idea in a story? I want you to talk with your partners about why you have to have a main idea. So you guys just finished talking with your groups. Now, let's see, who can tell me what you and your partners talked about, why it's important to have a main idea in your story. Why is it important to have a main idea? Brianna, what are you thinking?
It will make more sense.
Okay, so it helps the story make sense. What else? DJ, what do you think?
It will help us learn.
To help you learn. Did you really understand what was going on in this story? No. Did you understand what was going on in this story? Yes. In our closing, we compare and contrasted 2 different fiction texts, one that had a main idea and one that didn't. And the purpose of that was to show them and to also tie in with their own writing, which we do in Writer's Workshop, is that stories have to have a main idea. And if they don't have a main idea and a purpose and an overarching theme, then the readers get confused and it's really hard to follow and understand why the stories are being written. Literacy is something that is interdisciplinary, and it's something that shouldn't just be taught in a language arts block. It should be something that's taught all day throughout the day so that they're being exposed to different types of texts and really knowing that there's not language arts time, math time, science time, social studies time. If the classroom is running smoothly and efficiently, the kids aren't going to see the day as different blocks of time. They're going to see it just as one big day where they learn.